Good evening, everyone. I would like to call tonight's November 12th, 2024 regular Board of Director meeting to order. I am President Malone, and I would like to thank you for attending in person and for those staying engaged by watching us on Zoom and/or watching us at a later date. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a community comment form located in the lobby on the table and turn it in to Board Secretary Kim Coben, seated at the end of this table on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment to introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Icestone, Eastham, and Williams. To my left, we have Vice President Abraham, Directors Finch, Lingo, and Board Secretary Coven. And with those introductions, I will dive into the first portion of our agenda, which is student representative updates. And first up, we have City High, Nicholas and Annie.
Hi, it's Nicholas.
This is Anya. So to get started, this past month, we've had a lot of really exciting events happen at City High. Our Little Hawk news team won News Team of the Year, which is really exciting. They work really hard, so that was really cool for them. And we just got finished with an orchestra concert and a choir concert. The orchestra concert actually, well, in all 4 years that I've been at City High, it went better than any other year. And I heard the choir concert also went very well. We also just had a play that was student directed and student written, and it was really funny. It was really fun. It was a great experience. Students made all of the props and all the costumes. It was really fun. And then for our sports, cross country girls placed eighth at state, which that's really exciting. They work very hard. The boys won 6th place for all state, and the girls also went to Nike Cross Regionals, and we had someone that placed 15th and made the all-region team, so that's really exciting. She works very hard. That's Nina Peterson. And then the girls placed 1st at Nike Cross Regionals overall. And we hosted a robotics meeting at City High, which I heard that also went very well. That's pretty cool. And we got a new officer position within our student senate. Shout out to Amal. It's called the Diplomat, and they reach out to clubs and they help us with keeping everyone connected and making sure that everybody's informed, and make sure that the clubs are getting what they need from us. So yeah.
I need to make this move, sorry. And for the phone policy. On behalf of our students, we believe that the current cell phone policy is good and that we do not need a phone ban. Us and Student Senate feel strongly that the current phone policy should be maintained. We believe the ban on cell phones would be too extreme, being overly restrictive. We see the goal of the ban is to presumably reduce phone use in order to make students pay attention in class, get better grades, etc. Taking away the phones will not make them suddenly start caring about the class. This will mean they will find another way to slack off: computers. Every student has a computer with them at all times, a Chromebook. A Chromebook can accomplish all the distractions a phone would in class. With almost all classes using technology and digital work, it would be impossible to work around this type of distraction afterwards. Another problem is that it would be an administrative burden. Plenty of teachers also do not support this new idea for a phone ban. It would lead to additional burden on the school's administrations and teachers, who both are already extremely busy and do not have time to do back searches or any other measures that the administration would need, making classes stop to get monitors to come to the room and grab them for the students. We believe that the current phone policy is good as is because both students and teachers have agreed that the new phone pockets, with one warning, had caused an effect on students that caused students to be on their phone less already. So, and it's also with like a type of respect for the teacher. Because we have seen students use their phone less in class, and it's not as restrictive, because sometimes we need our phone in class. Take pictures of notes on the boards, or to do science experience, and just etc. And that's all. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Anya and Nicholas. Next up, we have Liberty High, Naomi and Elena.
Hi, I'm Naomi Thames. I'm a junior at Liberty. My attendee, Lindy McDonald, is not here tonight because she has something else to attend. Starting off, our football team is doing very well, and this Friday they are going to the semi-final playoffs at the Dome, and this will be our first time at the Dome. We're going against Southeast Polk at 7 p.m., and it's the Uni Dome. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. Okay, cool. Next, new final schedule for the end of the try. This was put in place so that students won't be as overwhelmed, and finals have been divided into 2 May days. And then we held our first school play of the year titled The Crucible. It was a play about the Salem witch trials. I heard it went very well. Good turnout from the students. And then our boys cross country also made it to state recently, and they placed 9th. We had 2 girls from our cross country team also qualify. Our Liberty Live Wire won all Iowa News Team of the Year. And in our Fine Arts department, we had students from band, orchestra, and choir all qualify for All-State. 7 students from band, 9 students from choir, and 3 in orchestra. They will perform in November at the All-State Music Festival. Our dance team held its 3rd annual Be a Light competition on Sunday of October 20th. The JV team competed at state and placed 3rd. The dance team varsity members participated in solos, and 7 were to earn a Division I, which is the highest rating you can earn. On Wednesday, October 23rd, over 350 Liberty 9th grader students joined thousands of other local students for the Corridor Career Inspire event. Students had an opportunity to explore a multitude of career pathways through hands-on activities and simulations, and to talk directly with professionals working in various fields. Liberty hosted the 3rd annual Corridor Marching Classics in October, which is a non-competitive showcase featuring bands from Liberty, City, West Branch, West Liberty, and CCA. It was a huge success. Liberty High achieved all the criteria to be listed on this year's AP School Honor Roll as a silver school. This is the highest AP Honor Roll level yet achieved by Liberty. Liberty is one of the 12 schools from Iowa to make the AP Honor Roll and one of 3 schools in Iowa to achieve this silver designation. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will hear from West High, Mustafa and Grace.
Thank you for having us. Grace wasn't able to make it today, so I'm here with our 11th grade representative, Waleed Ibrahim. And my bad if we take a second to buffer because we just finished practice. So
That's okay.
it'll be so bear with us. So we started wrapping up school sports, or the fall sports at least, and we had some notable finishes to our seasons. And for football, we made it to the quarterfinals before we got knocked out by Southeast Polk, but it was a great game to watch. And then for cross country, we had 2 qualifiers on the girls' side for state, and then 2 on the boys' side, and then 1 top 10 finish, and then a top 3 finish from a freshman from our. Yeah, I was the top 10 finish. But thank you. And yeah, we have the future of the team's looking very strong, and I think we can have a great next 4-ish years. And then swimming is doing great. They had districts about a week ago, and we had at least 1 qualifier in every event, which is really great to watch. And we're gonna soon, I think this weekend, are gonna represent at the CWC for West High, which is great. Next.
Closing out the trimester, we're having a tri-yearly study session on Monday for our finals week. It's just basically where if you need to study for anything, you'll use this time in the library to study. We have different clubs using this as well to help tutor people. So just in case you can't do it alone, you can have somebody who's knowledgeable about the topic to be able to help you better than just the normal way you would do it. and it's a better way not to be like distracted, like just to go with your friends. If you're having a tutor do it with you, they'll like keep you on topic and like make sure you actually are studying instead of just messing around, because everybody, like all students, want to just like talk, find a place to talk. But if you're actually given the incentive to learn something new with somebody who you like never spoken to before, it would just make you like feel obligated to actually like learn something new.
With those incentives, we have teenage favorites of goldfish and hot cocoa. So I think we can sway the student body with that. What's good about the study sessions, though, is that I've learned from freshman year, text anxiety has been like a big problem throughout the school. And last year, me and Cindy were talking about having a study session, and we had 2 trimesters worth of information to learn that I sent out a form before and after the finals, and we were able to reduce text anxiety by about 14%. So knowing that school-wide such a small action can create a big impact is just very warming to me. You want to start on school projects for commons? Sure. All right.
So we have a new commons at West High. It's just like a really big new area that was made. It was finished like a month ago, 2 months ago. And it's basically just a way where you can like study, eat lunch. You know, it's like right next to the lunchroom, so lots of people will go eat their food over there. And it's not only a beautiful addition to our school, but it's also a great place for people to either meet new people and check out just like what the school is doing with their money financially. And it's like a big way to see how we're doing everything, how the school's doing everything. It's a good way to include the students and have them be affected in whatever the school's doing. And not only just like academically or socially eating like food there, but we have a Pump It Up business, which is for BPA, and it's basically where it's like a vending machine basically, but like a student runs it, and it's a student-owned business. So it's a new area for Pump It Up. So there's like a really big like concession window. So it's not just like a normal board. We have a board like in the middle of the hall, like right now, and it's not the best. But now that we have the new commons, we'll be able to actually like officially be like a part of the school, like literally a building part of the school. And it won't only encourage people to want to do BPA so they can be more, induced in school curriculars, but it'll also put us in the incentive to buy stuff because it's visually better looking.
And that's about our school update, basically.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks.
All right.
And lastly, Tate High provided us with a written update. And just a couple of highlights. They continue to volunteer with Houses into Homes, where they help clean, organize, and repair and decorate in their warehouses. They are building with the Fab Lab, TV stands, and they plan to donate those to Houses into Homes. And they are currently going through career exploration, where they have a construction apprentice fair coming up, and they have field trips to Job Corps, Capri College, and a career day. So that concludes our student rep updates. And next up, we have ICEA update with President Brady Shutt.
Hi, President Malone, Vice President Abraham, Director, Superintendent Degner, Board Secretary Colvin. I'm Brady Shutt, President of the Iowa City Education Association. I want to give a huge shout out tonight to the HR team, Randy Kim, Carrie Cornwell, Patrick West, Lindsay Detra, and Chief Human Resources Officer Nick Proud for hosting an awesome event last week for student teachers from around our region. Also, a special thanks to Superintendent Degner for coming and supporting the event, and our aspiring educators. So the event was at the Center for Innovation and included step-by-step instructions about how to get your sub-authorization. So it's a win-win. They get something and hope that they'll sub for us, as well as information about how to go about getting your first Iowa teaching license. And then there was an all-star panel of educators who gave them tips about interviews and resumes and how to be a successful first-year teacher. It was an awesome event. It's the first time that we've done it. I would just shout out to Nick and his team for doing a great job. I did get some feedback from one of the student teachers. They wrote to me and said, I just wanted to reach out with an email to thank you for your time last night. We do get some instruction through the university about interviews and cover letters, but what I learned last night was invaluable in preparing me for them. Thanks again. And I think that was consistent feedback that we got. I think it was just a great event, the vision of it, and how that can really help our aspiring educators, and also, we hope, in turn, help the district. So congratulations.
Great. Thank you for that. And next up, we have a special recognition for our team, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Degner.
Yeah, good evening, President Malone, and good evening, everyone else. So one of the best parts of this job is I get to give out Shine Awards to different staff members in our school district community, and our staff is awarded these Shine Awards for employees that go above and beyond. They inspire and influence others to achieve great heights. And today, I couldn't be happier than the opportunity I get to recognize Kim Colvin as the recipient of that Shine Award. And she's going to hate every minute of this. But Kim's been nominated by the board, and the board is going to read a sampling of those nominations. But first, I just wanted to say how grateful all of us are that we get to work with you on a daily basis too. You're always helpful, you're always prepared, you're always kind, you show up the same every day, and I know all of us, as we got our legs under us at ESC, are tremendously thankful for you and just what you do for our district every day. So thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Sorry. Her reaction was because we lied to her to get it on the agenda, but thank you. And the board just really want to thank you for all that you do for us and making our work here go seamless. So I will read just a couple of these, but we'll also open it up to board members to share their gratitude for all that you do. So Ms. Colvin goes above and beyond for not only the superintendent, but also all 7 school board members. Over the years, she has had to deal with various personalities, and she has done so with grace and patience. She extends herself to onboard new members and ensures that all meetings run as smoothly as possible. And serving these last several years and having her assistance has been great. Kim Colvin truly makes this experience less complicated because of her extensive knowledge and kindness. So board members, I'm more than happy to pass this along so you can read yours, or you can just tell her how you feel. Okay, so we'll go this way. Yours is here, Jane is there.
I have worked with Kim for many years, and she always either knows the answer to my question or finds out in short order. She is kind, unflappable, hardworking, puts in long days, and always has a smile even at the end of the day. She manages to efficiently and effectively get more done in one day than anyone I know. ICCSD is lucky to have her.
Okay, give it here. Go ahead, Jane.
More than just being prompt, responsive, and organized, Kim exhibits the highest standards of professionalism. Her friendly disposition, conscientious nature, and ability to form positive relationships with absolutely everyone speaks to her integrity. And that strength of character rubs off on all who surround her. Quite simply, she makes everyone around her better. We love you, Kim.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I'll just go with the one thing that I love about Kim the most, besides getting to sit next to her every meeting, is the fact that I can ask her for something from like 2016, just some report that I find out about, and somehow she's able to find it. I will have some really obscure requests because I'm that kind of person, and she tolerates me for those obscure requests, and she fulfills them. So thank you, Kim.
I'm not going to read what I wrote. I just want to say that I have no idea if Kim ever has a bad day, because you can't tell when you meet her. She's always smiling, and she's always welcoming, and I've felt welcomed to this district and on this board since the day I got elected, many years ago, and you're a big part of that. And basically, you just make us all look good.
and you make me look very good. So I really appreciate everything you've done for me personally, Kim, and I hope we can continue to work together.
Kim, you care passionately about the district and its mission of educating students. You are responsible for making sure the trains run on time. Your duties run from helping new board members in the first few weeks and board members who have sat for years to organizing meetings, communicating with the public, and more. The district would simply not function as well without you. Plus, you do it all with a smile on your face and a sense of humor. Every day I get to interact with you is a great day.
So we aren't going to make you say anything, but we are going to make you take a picture. So we've got to get a picture.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you wish to speak about. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers who make comments are reminded that they are responsible for their own statements and may be subject to legal action for those which include hate speech and that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker and 5 minutes for speakers who has the assistance of an interpreter. Speakers' time limit will be displayed on the screen above Board Secretary Ms. Colvin. The initial community comment period shall be limited to 1 hour, and remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, shall take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. Any individual who does not abide by these rules or otherwise disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave and/or referred to law enforcement. And with that, our only speaker for tonight is Peter Byler. Peter?
He might have left. He said if we didn't get to it before 6:20, he might not be able to
Okay.
stay, so.
That concludes our community comment period. I did not know he had left. And with that, that takes us to our agenda approval for tonight. Is there a motion for us to approve tonight's agenda?
I move we approve our agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Colvin, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
Kim, I'm going to be a yes.
Thank you, Director Williams. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Before we get to tonight's consent agenda, did any directors have questions or comments related to the bill review this cycle? Hearing none, are there any items that directors would like to pull from tonight's consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item 6, Riva AmeriCorps agreement.
Okay. Are there any other items? Okay. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda minus item 6, the Riva AmeriCorps agreement?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, Board Secretary Coben, ready to vote. I'm sorry.
Online voting is open.
That's why we have her.
I know. Forgot where I was at.
All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That takes us to the item pulled from tonight's consent agenda. Director Finch.
Thank you, President Malone. I pulled this tonight just to get more information for the board and the public about the services that Riva will be providing for the district.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Executive Director Cottrell to give you guys a little bit of an overview about the Riva AmeriCorps agreement. We've worked with AmeriCorps before, but this is a unique angle on it, and thank you to a couple of you that kind of made that introduction for us. And so Laura will update you about where we're at on that and maybe some of the work that we're still looking to complete to engage with them.
Hi, directors. So thus far, we were able to offer positions to part-time Arabic-speaking. We're calling them student and family support. And so we were able to find a part-time Arabic-speaking member and then also a full-time French-speaking member. We're still looking for a Spanish-speaking member. This window may close before we're able to secure that person, but Riva's been really kind to kind of like extend things and are still inquiring about the candidate that we think we have. So hopefully we can secure that person. I just found out that Riva offers childcare, and that was the barrier for the candidate that we had that was Spanish speaking. So I did inform them, and hopefully we can secure our Spanish speaking one as well. So we're really excited about what's to come. Hopefully we'll have them until October. So their contract goes through to October, and that's whether or not they are part-time or full-time. So excited.
Thank you, Executive Director Cottrell. Can you tell me again what the name of the position was?
Yes, it is the Student and Family Support.
Okay.
And it's really for our EL students and families. They'll do things like interpretation and tutoring and college readiness support and help out parents with whatever they need that can serve like a liaison for us. So grateful for Carmen to help kind of articulate some areas that they could support our EO students in. And we're just looking forward to them being with us.
Wonderful.
President Malone, I might add, I really appreciate the staff putting this together because it extends the services that we know are needed in the student and family area in the district. And really great work in taking advantage of this opportunity.
Any additional questions or comments from directors? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve item 6, Riva AmeriCorps agreement.
Second.
Board Secretary Colvin, ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That brings us to tonight's public hearings. The first one will be the public hearing on Mid-American Energy Easement. Vice President Abraham.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed Mid-American Energy Easement. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on October 22nd, 2024. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on October 26, 2024. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Thank you. I will close that public hearing and open our next public hearing, which is the district camera project.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2024 district-wide camera project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on October 22nd, 2024. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on October 23rd, 2024. The district will receive bids on this project at 10 a.m. November 21st, 2024 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on October 30th, 2024. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Thank you. I will close that public hearing. And next up is our policy review. We have the 300 series policy for administration and policy 203, Board of Directors conflict of interest. Director Finch, did you have any comments?
Sure. So we discussed this at our last regular meeting. The 300 series, there weren't a lot of changes, mostly just changes in designation of responsible persons. The conflict of interest policy, I'll just read this for you. Board members must not engage in any outside employment or activity which is in conflict with the board members' official duties and responsibilities. Board members must not use their board positions to obtain staff employment for themselves, family members, or close associates. Should a board member want to apply for staff employment, he or she must first resign from the board. Board members must not attempt to exercise individual authority over the organization. I did want to make a couple of comments about this because we had some discussion at our last board meeting about this, and I will say that I was just a little caught off guard to hear the objections to this policy. I guess because in my mind it seems just like basic ethics. And this is the type of input that would be helpful to hear prior to a committee meeting. While these matters can, of course, be discussed during the regular meeting and board members are not required to attend all committee meetings, the committee meeting is where our most robust discussions occur and where we dig into the details to make fully informed decisions. As the chair of the committee, it would be my preference that if there are strong feelings about a proposed policy, but those who express those oppositions are unable to make the meeting in order to share those concerns, I would welcome calls or emails, as I feel this would be important in honoring our board norms around which these discussions are best framed. Regarding the policy itself, as I've already stated, I consider this a matter of basic ethics. As board directors, our role is public. It is because of this very public role that we need to be impeccable in our ethics or risk losing credibility and the trust of the public, without which we cannot do our jobs effectively. This is not an indictment of past or current board members. It is a guardrail for the future. The makeup of this board and the people sitting around this table are constantly changing and will be different in 2 or 5 or 10 years. This policy simply requires a board member to resign from the board before submitting a job application with the district, over which they have great power and influence. A board member's concern that their resignation could signal something to their current employer is not relevant, especially when we are dealing with the seriousness of board ethics. For me, personally, when I consider this policy through the lens of my fiduciary responsibility as a board member, it is not difficult for me to choose the interest of the board over the interest of the self. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from fellow board members?
Yeah, I figure it's either now or later during the action. I mentioned to a couple folks, and including to Director Finch, that I had some conversations with some folks after the meeting, because I was the one who kind of spoke up in opposition of the policy. And I did have a nice dialogue. I walked through kind of several points, ones that I made at the board table and other ones that I'd made as I thought about it after the fact. But the bottom line is my points were completely valid. However, I was putting the needs of the individual over the needs of the entity, right? And if I channel my inner Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. While the points were still valid and how it personally impacts people, I need to take a step back from that and look at it from what the district needs and what's important to ensure that we are successful as a district. One of the points I was trying to work out through this dialogue was, doesn't the district still own the burden of being able to say why they chose a candidate over any other candidate, whether it was a board member or anybody else, right? And the answer is yes. But also, how do you know that they were doing the right thing if there's even the slightest hint that there's some favoritism there? So I am taking a step back and placing the district above the needs of the individual, which I think is the intent of the policy. So I just wanted to make that clear before we got to the action point. Thank you.
Director Eastham.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Director Finch, too, sorry. I'm going to support this policy change of basically because I think it has been articulated that it's important for the district in making staff hiring decisions to show that we're making the best hiring decisions and considering all the factors around a particular applicant. And without such a written policy formation, I think it'd be more difficult for us to attain that end in our hiring deliberations. So I appreciate the work that the committee's done to bring this before the board. I think the conversation has been thoughtful and considerate on the part of everyone involved. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Director Williams. Sorry.
No, thanks. I wasn't at the meeting last 2 weeks ago, but I did watch the meeting, and I don't personally think there's anything wrong with the policy. I'm going to vote for the policy. Never in my wildest dreams would I work for the school district for a variety of reasons. One, because I'd be very bad at it. So it doesn't impact me personally. But I have to say, Director Finch, I was very disturbed by some of the comments that you directed about and reiterated today about how our committees are functioning, and that has simply not been my experience on the board. And I really think it's important that if that is what the expectation is, we're all on the same page. I've chaired committees. I've sat on P&G. I think I've now sat on all of our committees. And when I was a committee chair, a lot of the work the committees do is mundane and thankless work that is really just making sure that the trains keep on coming on time. And I would never, the reason that we have committees and the reason that we only have 3 of us on committees is to lessen the burden of the work that the 7 of us have to do. We don't get paid, and yet it's a full-time job. And when I was a committee chair and something important was happening during agenda setting, I would make a note to invite all of the board members to join us at that operations committee. I would highlight it, and I would make sure it was on everybody's radar so that if it was one of the more important things, people knew that they were invited and welcome and should attend. I would never expect someone who didn't come to a committee meeting to then lose their voice at the board table. And I feel like that's what you tried to do to Director Eastham. I've listened to his comments several times, and not Director Eastham, Director Eystone, and what I heard Director Eystone communicating was simply a disagreement with the policy. I felt that he was voicing his concerns so that the public would be able to understand where his vote was going towards, where his mind was. He didn't ask for a delay in the vote. He didn't ask for the policy to go back to committee. He just wanted to speak his truth about what he felt. And I don't think that any of the 7 of us lose that right to speak from the board table because we don't go to a committee meeting. And I have to say, I'm very concerned if that's the expectation, that we no longer get to talk at this table because we miss meetings that we're not a part of. I really didn't think that was fair. And it really troubled me. And it troubled me that then you kind of reaffirmed that that's what you were thinking today. I also was troubled when I heard you say you took Director Eyestone's specific concerns today and you just said that they were not relevant. And I feel like that was a really veiled insult to Director Eyestone. I thought everything he said at the last meeting was relevant. I respected his point of view. It's our board norm to listen to the goal of understanding, act in good faith, assume positive intent, and I feel like that is not happening, and I'm really uncomfortable with that whole situation that has nothing to do with the actual policy that we're going to vote about later today.
So, I would say that if you have these concerns, that you know my phone number and you can call me, and don't interrupt me. I know that you're about to interrupt me here. What I said tonight was absolutely appropriate. Director Eyestone's comments were uninformed because he did not bother to pick up the phone to give me a call to ask me where this policy was coming from, or attend the meeting. Again, you just iterated our board norms with the goal of understanding. There was no goal of understanding. It was an aggressive, self-righteous, you can go back and listen to it. There were no questions about the policy. Assumptions were made. And as he just said, he changed his mind after getting more information. That's something that could have been done before creating an awkward moment at the board table. So I stand by what I said. Again, as the chair of the committee, if it's clearly on the agenda, if you have concerns or questions, I really, really just ask for my colleagues to please give me a call. We've talked about this time and time again as we discuss our board norms. Make the call. Don't play these gotcha moments at the board table. I was simply responding to what was said at the last meeting. It's not okay to mischaracterize what is happening here. This is basic ethics. It's basic ethics.
Are you saying the board policy is basic ethics that you're proposing, or you're saying our discussion at this point is?
The board policy is basic
Yeah,
ethics.
and I think
It's basic ethics.
Right, and I think everybody has said the board policy is okay. It just felt like a real shutdown of the ability to give feedback.
Again, that's why we have talked time and time again about making that phone call. Don't blindside your colleague at the board table. If you're going to come out so strongly and aggressively in opposition to something, please don't make it be a surprise. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Don't make it be a surprise. Okay.
So I have 2 things to say. I am so sorry because you get to talk too. But again, as someone watching it, I push back very strongly about the labeling of Director Eyestone as aggressive at that meeting. I don't, as a neutral, what I feel, somebody that wasn't in the room that watched the recording, it did not come off as aggressive to me. Here's the other thing I'll say. I think what you just said is incredibly disingenuous. And I'm absolutely flabbergasted to hear it. to say that we should pick up the phone and call you, because you personally have had numerous complaints about me over the past several years, and you have never once picked up the phone. And instead what you do is you report them to leadership. And no, and I raised my concerns with leadership. That's what I did, because that's what I thought we did. And you refused to have a discussion, and instead we had to discuss it tonight at the board table. So you asked for this conversation here, not on the phone. And I cannot believe that you would let the public think that, knowing what actually happened. I am absolutely flabbergasted that it's a conversation about ethics, and you have completely misrepresented what went on.
Move that we go to
Director was
recess.
shocked.
I move that we go to recess.
Uh,
I move that we go to recess.
Seconded.
I don't know how that works.
We're in recess.
So, Board Secretary, do we vote? Or,
I don't think you have to vote for a recess. I think you just go to
okay, recess, and we'll take a 5-minute recess. So we'll return at 6:51.
I think it requires a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, stop. So Chase believes.
Says, under Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, a motion to recess may not be called when another person has the floor, is not reconsiderable, and requires a second and a majority vote. When adopted, it is immediately effective.
Okay, so do we just do roll call vote, or?
Probably, because we don't have a thing.
Okay,
So, Lingo, sorry.
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Abraham,
Yes.
Malone,
yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Eastham,
No.
and Istone.
No.
Majority is that we would take a recess, so motion carries.
Okay, so we will take a 5-minute recess and reconvene at 6:52. No. Meeting is in recess for 5 minutes. I've heard it mentioned several times, our board norms, keep those in mind as you engage in this discussion, and try to remain professional. If I feel as though the norms are not being adhered to, and or the discussion has gone on for too long and became unprofessional, I will move us along to our next topic. With that, I know before the recess, I saw directors Istone, Eastham, and Williams wanting to speak.
I only have one more thing,
Nope.
and then I'll be done.
We're gonna do Istone, Eastham, Williams.
I was just gonna say, I do think we need to gain alignment on expectations for committees, and I think we're gonna cover that in our organizational meeting, so I'm gonna keep my thoughts on that for that conversation. I just wanted to rebut a little bit. I did take offense to the comment that my comments at the last meeting were uninformed. I think they were very well informed because of a very personal attachment to the comments that I was making. Did I get another perspective and change my mind? Yes, I did. But I do take offense to saying my comments were uninformed.
Thank you, President Malone. My thinking is that we are talking about the role of committee chairs and in part the role of board committees. Under the heading of an agenda item, it's a label policy review and a specific policy. So I have a question about whether or not we are, our comments about committees are out of order at this point, and maybe we should schedule that as a separate.
That committees will be discussed during our organization meeting, as Director Istone has mentioned. Typically, if it falls within the purview of the conversation, we allow it.
Well, thank you very much, President Malone.
I just want to add that it is very hard for me to take you as a genuine comment when you say your phone is open, because I requested, and I see that you're looking at your time. I'm sorry if I'm being, not appropriate, Director Finch, or that you have better things to do than listen to one of your fellow board members express their concerns. But I actually offered to sit down and meet with you several years ago to try to get us onto the same page and have Director Gray facilitate that conversation, and you refused to participate. So when you say at this table that if we have concerns, we can call you, I do not feel that that is true, because you have refused to try to meet and communicate with me in the past. And I don't think that that's you being open or honest with your communication.
Okay.
So I'm a trained restorative justice facilitator, and really the first rule about those types of meetings is that they do have to have two willing participants who feel safe in that meeting. And I don't think I have to explain to anyone here tonight or in the public why I don't feel safe with such a meeting with you. I apologize for offending Director Eyestone. I'm really sorry that this has gotten so out of control, and I think, again, that just really illustrates how important open communication is to this board. I would just offer a plea that, in the future, everyone knows my phone number. You can call me. I'm a very reasonable and kind person. So anyway, I'm glad to see we have the votes to pass this, because I do think it's important to in engendering trust with our community, this new conflict of interest policy. So thank you to everyone.
With that, we will move on to tonight's discussion items, which the first one is our high reliability school update. Superintendent Degner, do you want to open it up before you turn it over?
I sure will. I'll give Mr. Proud and Mr. Shutt a chance to come up to the podium here. We're going to talk to you guys tonight a little bit about level 2 in high reliability schools. High reliability schools, for those that are unfamiliar, is our school improvement framework. And last year, we accomplished certifying all of our campuses and schools with a level 1 certification, showing that continuous commitment to improvement, especially in the area of creating a safe, supportive, and collaborative culture with our staff. So level 2 is that next stage in that work, and so we're excited for Brady and Nick to talk to you a little bit tonight about some of the work underway in that area.
All right, yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here talking about HRS, and I feel like I've had a lot of opportunities to talk tonight, so that's sort of nice. I appreciate it. HRS Level 2, one of the things that is interesting about this one, and now I know why people say I don't know how to do this, just as a little bit of background, for us and what we're talking about, which is the evaluation and its connection to HRS Level 2, we actually started this work prior to our adoption of the HRS framework. In 2017, the Iowa legislature changed Chapter 20, where collective bargaining rights reside. One of the items that they removed from being what's called a permissive item to a prohibited item was evaluation. And so that, among other things in that legislative session was difficult for districts. I was proud that our district decided that we do have some shared values and that we would come together and collaborate. And I think it's a really good illustration of how the strength of our collaborative partnership pays off in times like this. So the work that we did actually predates HRS. Our shared values, we wanted the evaluation process to be reflective and not punitive. We wanted to focus on growth and improvement, and we wanted it to be one that created a useful process and not a hoop to jump through. So Nick and I actually facilitated the team that began that work back at that point.
Sitting in your classroom, I believe it was, yeah. And it's probably odd you're getting to listen to HRS stuff from other than, the group that sits over here. Eliza's gone this evening with Jason, Eliza, and Carmen and Lucas, but we'll share a few more pieces. Well, part of level 2 is this idea of effective teaching in every classroom. And there's two particular components that we really made connections to in this work. You can look at the 2.2, which really speaks to the teachers and their ability to work on reflection and their own professional growth. And in that, we've really worked and made some connections to our CDP, our career development plan. And Brady's going to share a little bit more about that in a little bit. Across the state, they talk about the Iowa professional development plans for teachers and their own ability to create goals, have those goals be tied to what's occurring within the district, and then have a chance to reflect on them and how they can have some growth. And again, Brady will share a great example of some of the things that are occurring at Liberty related to this. And then 2.4, this really gets into the evaluation process. And as one of the things that we talk about commonly, and a lot of times when people's minds go to evaluation, you think about maybe that individual who's struggling, where we really wanted to create a process that was working for all of our teachers. We have wonderful educators within our district, and how can we help them get some feedback, because everyone deserves feedback in their role, and then what we can do to have that move forward in producing better student outcomes and helping the teacher become more reflective and better within the classroom.
So for the CDP, the Career Development Plan, that's a yearly process that non-probationary teachers in the state of Iowa undergo. I've done it for years and years and years. We used to do it in the spring, actually, in the district. And I think when Nick and I started working in this, it didn't make a lot of sense to have it in the spring, because then your school year's almost done, you're wrapping up, your mind is, tying things up and not thinking about how I can continue to grow formally through this process throughout the school year. So one of the big changes we made was just the timing of it, was to move that formal creation process to the fall rather than the spring, and then to have a formal check-in with your evaluator, typically your building administrator, happen in the spring. The other thing that I loved was that we embedded the new art and science of teaching elements into the CDP formally. And so I'll show an example of that. Again, our goal is reflective. We want this to be a reflective, growth-oriented process. So you can see those are the elements from New Art and Science of Teaching. That is included in everybody's CDP. And in fact, that's a screenshot of mine. So what I chose to work on formally this year, among other things, as a veteran teacher, is using assessments and using informal assessments of the whole class. Those formative assessments that I deliver then help guide my instruction as I monitor student learning and their mastery of our learning outcomes. And so by choosing that, it does connect to the Iowa teaching standards, of course, but I'm using now common language with all of my other colleagues across the district and with the evaluators. In my conversations with Dr. Colbert, Justin, my principal, he knew that's what I was working on. I'd identified that. I'm working with the team. I'm tracking that across time. I have a SMART goal around it. And then when Justin came recently to my room to do a walkthrough, what they're doing at Liberty, and I think in the other schools as well, is they have this form on their district devices. And so as they watch us, they're giving us feedback about specific elements that they're looking for and seeing, and also that they know I'm working on. So as Justin came through, he commented on some of the things. I think it was using unusual information to gather, to keep students engaged. That's what I was doing that day. But he also asked me a really great question and said, we were talking about why people don't go and vote. Why is voter turnout so low? And he asked a great question. He said, how will you know if they've learned that? That's one of your learning goals. And I thought, that's awesome, Justin. Thank you for asking. And it really helped me reconnect back to my own CDP. So when we do our our instructional rounds with our colleagues, it's the same format. We have a document. We're looking for things off of the elements. But by embedding it in that formal way, we're really utilizing it as a growth tool up and down the system.
And then the final part is really looking at the career teacher assessment, and we have a lot of the same alignment in this process. If you look at the revised forms, we talked about the evaluation forms. Teachers will work through a pre-conference form. The administrator will be working on some notes throughout the observation, and then there's an opportunity for a post-conference again. And we've aligned within that the new art and science of teaching within those elements, so that way there's just that consistency across all all the conversations and all the dialogue. It's not replacing the teaching standards. It's just an opportunity to look at high quality teaching practices and incorporating them throughout, and then providing feedback and reflective questions for everyone to be involved in this process, and really trying to focus in on how can we continue on reflection and growth is the greatest thing that we're trying to promote during this time. Yep, go.
I want to add just one more note on that, because Nick is sort of selling some of his work short a little bit on that slide. I think one of the things that I appreciated in working with Nick is that he also has trained and worked with administrators to make sure they're providing written feedback. There you actually can't submit the form. It's a Qualtrics form. You can't submit it unless you provide written feedback, which for teachers is fantastic. And so that's something that, is a shared value. We want there to be growth, but you need to know, how you can grow and what's going well, how you can improve. And so I will say that, I really do appreciate that. I think that was his past practice when he was a principal at Garner, and that's certainly then now translating up and down our system.
Thank you both so much. Directors, I would open it up for questions or comments or discussion. I will ask President Schott, there we go. I'll throw that out there.
Thanks.
Did you have an answer to Dr. Colbert's question?
Yeah, so I ended up using an entrance ticket the next day, thinking that's a really good idea, just to see where we're at, and collected that to inform me as they were doing some work about where they were and with our learning from the previous day. So I did, in fact, implement that. See, we can all grow. Even I've been doing this a very long time. But I think that's the power of it. You have a common language. You're aligning your system. I think that's part of the value that we're seeing in HRS. Is it is going to help teachers grow and get better, which is going to help students have better outcomes. So thanks. That's a good question.
Director Easton.
Sure. Thank you, President Malone. Could you comment on the description of HRS level 2.4 that's in the slide number 7 or page number 7? That says that evaluation of teachers are based on multiple sources of data and are consistent with student achievement data. Does that mean that the achievement data of students in each class are used in making the evaluation? Or am I misunderstanding the statement there?
Well, I think if you look to the Iowa teaching standards, or you look at this particular level, HRS, student achievement is always something that you're going to look at. How are the students performing? How are they, in meeting standards or whatever it may be? So yes, there's a direct tie to how the students are doing in the classroom. I think it looks a little bit different, the conversations of, okay, what does this look like as a high school teacher who may be seeing 100 and some odd students throughout the day versus, hey, my experience as an elementary principal when I'd be working with, a teacher who may be seeing that same group of 27 kids on a daily basis. It looks a little bit different because there's obviously different factors that are playing in. But of course, student achievement is always part of the evaluation process and how our teachers are doing.
So if however the student achievement data is presented, does that mean that teachers can be aware of disparities in student achievement in their classroom that
we have
gets into the evaluation and changes of
potentially. I would say too, the other layer to that is that we are working within our PLC collaborative team. So as your team works with a group of students, when you're lucky enough to have a team, with a group of different students working on some of the same learning goals, that also informs that. That's part of that, that's sort of the PLC cycle. But certainly, if again, as Nick pointed out, the data that you're going to get at the elementary level with some of our reading programs or math programs, for instance, is going to look a little bit different than secondary. And I think that helps part of the conversation, in terms of how we help our students learn. I don't feel that the district is, at all with HRS looking at that, pinpointing it and saying, yeah, your data is slow, therefore, you're on some probationary list or you need to go under intensive assessment.
I'm not looking for that.
But it does inform it though. Yeah, we do want our students to learn. We want people to dive into that. That's part of, even at the secondary level, what we want folks to do through the PLC collaborative teams. What are your priority standards? How do you know if students are achieving those? What are you going to do about it if they're not? And if they are, how do you extend their learning?
Charlie, one thing I'd add to that is even before we moved to HRS, one of the things we've worked on since I sat in Nick's chair at one point and worked with Brady is that the evaluation process should be about growth for the teacher. It shouldn't be a gotcha, and so we want to show them their data, right, so they feel comfortable with that. Those words, I mean, it kind of harkens back to one of those old federal pieces that was out there about kind of this idea of like pay for performance, right? And I think when we see that, that's where people's minds kind of go. But that's not how we interpret that. That's not what it's, and I know that's not what you were saying, but I just wanted to call that out, that that's not what we mean by this. We see evaluation, we see this work around level 2 to be about our teachers being able to grow as professionals, to grow as practitioners, and to best serve students. And so we have to be transparent that we think a part of that is letting them see their data, react to that data, and how do we collaborate to make that better. Again, growth opportunity. Brady, I'm glad you said it's not something where we look at their data and say, oh, your kids are doing this, so we're going to rate you that. That's never what we're trying to get at. And you weren't suggesting that.
No, I'm not suggesting. In fact, I think one of the strengths of this approach, the HRS approach, is that it is on betterment, growth, looking at what's happening,
100%,
and not being
Yeah, I think one of the key words there is really consistent. And so as an evaluator, oftentimes you may see something and checking that against a kind of that third data point, right? Or a third point to say, okay, well, this behavior looks good. Is it producing results? Is the teacher behavior producing results? Or there's things I'm seeing, that maybe are concerning, but hey, the results are really good. It's working for them, and some uniqueness there. So I read that one and think more of it like as a third point to say, what I see, is what I'm seeing in the classroom matching what I'm seeing in the data, right? Or is there an outlier situation, right, that deserves some further exploration?
Any additional questions, comments? Thank you both. Next up is our discussion item on Center for Innovation. And Superintendent Degner?
Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to have an opportunity to hear a little bit of feedback from you guys. We had the presentation at your last meeting in October, and then we had an opportunity for 2 board members to also visit a piece of what was included in that presentation. And so just an opportunity to hear some feedback from the board, and then also a suggestion or an idea I kind of want to plant as a takeaway item after we're done with some discussion.
I would love to hear from Directors Finch and Williams about the Denver trip. What did they think about it? What did they experience?
Sure, it was really cool. So it was Director Finch and I, Superintendent Degner, Laura Ebinger from the foundation, Patrick, and a couple of people from JA, from Junior Achievement. Wasn't Adam there? And Adam was there, gosh. Adam, I'm so sorry I forgot because we had so much fun together. It was a really good, I think, mix of brains. And it was great, actually, that Adam was there because he, went into his, nerdy number, data mode and was like, we could do this type of, capturing the data and then sending it to their school counselors, which I still think was a really cool idea. But I think the best part of the trip was we all got to do the Dream Accelerator and we got to see it, and that was really cool. But the best part was we got to see some high school students actually go through, and they were super engaged. It can fit up to 40 students, but I don't think they had 40 in there when we were in there. It was a smaller group. But the way it's set up, it's really interactive, it's engaging, it's eye-catching, it's relevant to their lives, it's really hands-on. At one station, they have some local Denver businesses, and you could have a clothing store was one that we did. And it was your clothing store should partner with somebody in the community. What do you think the best business model to do that with? And then it runs you through scenarios, and you have to make a decision about, are we going to build on an existing client base, or are we going to go somewhere where there's brand saturation? Anyway, it was really cool to watch the kids work through these really hands-on, real-world business problems, and you could see them getting excited about seeing themselves in a business career. and it was just really cool. I enjoyed it a lot, and I really think that our students would probably benefit a lot from having that program here. I think it would be something exciting for them to experience, and the way that the team was talking, you know, it's not just one thing you do, like your junior year of high school, you just go once and that's it. It's really a program that would build progressively as they come through the district, and the skills build upon each other, and really starts getting their heads around CTE and life after high school and how to prepare for it. So I thought it was really neat.
And Patrick's last name? Snyder, okay. Was also with us. So I was very grateful for the opportunity. It's a beautiful space, modern decor, museum lighting. I mean, the aesthetics are really nice. It's just a nice space to be in. I guess I had a different takeaway from it. It left me with more questions, I think, than what I had going in. I still have doubts. I'm just not sure this is the type of hands-on experience that we were looking for. I felt it was kind of surface level, and you know, continued reliance on screens. I think, you know, some of this technology could, you know, be obsolete in a few years, and and also just accomplished in a classroom with a Chromebook. I'm not sure that we need to use a dedicated space for this, and perhaps we just need to marinate on this and just make sure that we have the right thing for this space, and save the space for future needs. My continued concerns about how this might impact the general fund, operational funding for the future. I mean, this is a space that, you know, the Denver Broncos was a sponsor. The Coors Corporation was a sponsor. And this is the whole Denver metro area that is putting this out there, as opposed to the Iowa City School District. And I do have doubts that this is going to draw students. So I'm not, I would not be opposed to visiting the St. Louis facility to see the JA Trades or the STEM 360. But I think we need to take some more time with this, you know, until our enrollment becomes more clear and our budget issues get more sorted out. And, you know, in the end, this is just a basement, and it can stay empty until we make sure that we have the very best thing for our students for that space.
I wonder if anyone can comment on the place you visited, how it's incorporated into the local public school system, how long it's been in use, any information that system may have about their measurement of its effects on student involvement and interest, and how it affects students going into their career decisions.
Yeah, so they serve a few different districts. They're with that existing Dream Accelerator. The data that they provided us that day was really centered on student attitudinal shifts. It was very strong. I'd be happy to send, you know, a hard copy of that to the board through email so you could see. That was an intriguing part for me. I mean, you know, obviously seeing the videos of it ahead of time, seeing the students experience it, but then having the aggregate data about some of the attitudinal shifts from the students, I thought was compelling. Yeah, I do. I do think that would be wise to share with you guys, and we can send that through certainly about the data there, Charlie. I think the connection point that Director Williamson Finch had talked about too has to do with kind of career path and career planning for students, and really getting them to solidify, you know, what path they're taking. You know, and as we presented to you that evening, I think part of the effort is, as we've set those goals for Porch of the Graduate and the Skills for Kids, is trying to determine what works best for us, for our students, to make sure they have that pathway to purpose, right? That they're leaving here with a ticket to do something, and they have an idea that's refined and well thought out. Yes, we can accomplish some of that through existing platforms we have and existing experience. This was an example of a way we could try to extend that potentially, or give them a more refined idea, and also a local flair. I think that was probably my other takeaway that I thought was intriguing, is how do you localize it to the district? That was, of course, all centered on Denver. Like Director Finch had talked about a couple of examples, and we'd have our own local examples. And there'd be opportunity for us to also look at, potential funders here, or folks that would want to partner on that. So I think it fits, as part of a larger picture. But again, we had that whole presentation and never really got to hear, from most of you. So, that's a little bit of the summary or highlights for me, too, from the trip.
And like one of the things that Superintendent Degner was talking about that I briefly mentioned, but to like loop it up better, is so part of it is you go through and you get an idea of career paths, and then Adam's idea, you go through on a tablet and it saves all of your data and your inputs and Adam's idea was then that data would get transmitted to a student's high school counselor. So a student would go through in 8th or 9th grade, and then the counselor would get their readout of their specific experience and that would help the counselor and the student get on the same page about what course of studies to then pursue for 9th, 10th, 11th grade. So if you had somebody interested in the, skilled trades, the counselor would know, oh, this is probably somebody who's a great candidate for student-built house. Let's make sure they get their prerequisites under their belt before they move there. Which again, I think that's,
Right.
to me, our kids have a problem. Like some of them know what they want, they don't know how to get there, and some of them don't know what they want and they don't know how to get there. And this addresses kind of both of those issues.
Yeah. Coming into this current FMP 2.2, I will reiterate that many of us in the community voted for PEPAL increase and the extension of it because we were under the opinion, and rightfully so, that we were having high enrollment growth, and that personally I voted for it because I expected that we would need more elementary schools and extensions to our secondary buildings. And these were anticipated needs, and why many of our community members, including myself, voted for it. Now, we have found out and started to look at the enrollment cliff that's upcoming. We've had discussions about elementary schools. We got a lifeline with 175 student enrollment increase, but these elementary buildings are not coming. Let's be honest. And unless we have some explosive housing development in some of the corners of our district, probably not. Now, what this has left us with $84 million that was line item to elementary buildings. You can add in the other, over $100 million that are kind of sitting there that we have to decide what to do with FMP 2.2, right? So when the thing that looms in the background with all these discussions and choices to me is that elementary thing that we discussed a little bit last week when we saw what revenue looks like, what revenue potentially looks like at the last meeting. Adam's great line graphs showcase that. So when there are changes and discussions of FMP, there are really three questions that loom in my mind. The first question is, do the communities of Coralville Hills, Iowa City, North Liberty, University Heights, and the unincorporated areas, will they tolerate the spending on these construction projects when we are having when the elementary schools remain the elephant in the room? My second question will be, will this help academic outcomes and to a lesser extent social outcomes among the students in our district? The third question was, will this help increase student enrollment or at the very least decrease the loss of student enrollment? I went through this project. I looked online, went through some of the things that you can view online about it, and I just have a hard time buying that it will profoundly affect academic student outcomes or how students will interact with each other in these buildings. There are different ideas embedded in this project that would be able to, some of the project-based learning, such as Director Finch talked about in St. Louis. I can kind of see those, but really a lot of this would require more busing, give students with the car the ability to use the facility, are the busing to take out of our general fund. While the later aides in those fortunate enough to own a car, the former may be taking funds that we could provide to our classrooms. My second question is that I believe only a few, I have a hard time viewing parents or guardians enrolling their children into our school district based off of a $6 million computer facility to learn how to, or to plot out their student's life course. We have a program, I believe is it Zello or Cello? How do you pronounce that? Zello, that students go through on their laptops already. And finally, I live on the east side. These are the elementary schools that we're talking about. I hear from east siders. That's where I live. And I cannot go to, I have heard a resounding opinion from my constituents that I spend a lot of time with that they do not support putting money into the Center for Innovation, especially for this project. Now, if there's other projects that emerge that I can make a decent argument that this will aid in student learning and produce academic outcomes. And finally, when we're talking about some of these things that are coming up, and I don't know what Superintendent Degner has to end with, but I know that with our school performance profiles, there are new additions in there that we will probably have to lean heavy into, such as work-based learning while in high school and the students earning industry credentials, because those are some of the expectations that are coming out and or high schools are going to be graded on for the indefinite future. So anyway, thank you.
I'm going to kind of talk conceptually of what I think is a benefit. I mean, we're kind of locked in on the Dream Accelerator, which is kind of the big shiny piece of it all, but we had more in the presentation, and the parts that speak to me is the kind of more across the grade levels kind of touch points, right? And I think, you know, that was one of my big pushes to move towards the middle school format, is to reach kids at an earlier age, to help them define their career path, and you kind of spoke to that. And so I think those touch points, at whatever ways we can do that at younger ages to get kids just exposed to different things, maybe prior to there being stigma about certain things, right? That, oh, it's okay to like these things, and can kind of get down that path before it's too late. I think that's important. I think the JA trades thing kind of speaks to that a little bit, but that is still, I don't know, I think that's older ages at that point too, maybe. So I think looking at how we can get some of those touch points at younger ages, and I think if junior achievement is the partner that helps us do that, I'm okay with that. And I don't know that it's an all or nothing kind of deal, like we have to do all of those things that they're proposing versus a couple smaller things or whatnot. But I really like the idea of being able to reach kids at different ages and expose them to different things earlier.
I will say that was part of their presentation, that they highlighted the Dream Accelerator and tried to sell it as, you know, this would be the only one in Iowa and the potential, but it was several other pieces that I, for one, got pretty excited for, and thought about some of the students that I know and love in the district, and talk to those families about the different touch points and the possibility to have a more focus, because we live in Iowa City, and Iowa City is one of the most educated places that a lot of our children will ever leave. And oftentimes I hear that you could pick up a rock and throw it and hit a PhD candidate or a PhD holder. And so it's ingrained, and I'm not gonna throw that at you, Director Lingo, I saw that look. I see in our kids oftentimes that they have in their head, and I've talked to a bunch of kids, oh, I have to go to college, because they don't know anything else. And for me, that was the piece that I'm willing to learn more about, the different touch points to expose them to the possibilities that's out there. And I believe Dr. CFO Kurth might have mentioned the possibility of, depending on what's developed, it may be a way that we can charge other districts to use it, which brings in revenue. So although our enrollment is facing a cliff, it may be a way to bring in additional revenue for the district. And again, that's something that I'm willing to have a conversation about and explore, just personally, because I think that's usually the first step. Having that conversation, exploring all aspects of the possibilities, and then moving forward from there, whether it's a vote or continue to give administration the green light to explore. That's where I'm at after that presentation.
I think, Ruthina, you summarized my enthusiasm, as I termed it, unbridled earlier, and for this, for the Center for Innovation, for the future for the district. Although I think we do not encourage students to throw rocks at PhDs. So there are many things, we don't know about what's going to happen with enrollment. I still think that this district has seen increases in enrollment with the immigrant families, many families moving to the county, and that may have an effect. Okay. I know when I have run for the school board, I've emphasized in my campaign making provisions and opportunities for students to seek careers in all areas and phases, academic, non-academic, and so forth. And I think that the CFI is a major step on our part for improving our non-academic outcomes for students. And it will also have an effect upon our academic outcomes. So I'm more than willing to continue to follow the administration's lead on developing the programs for the CFI.
Well, I thought Director Lingo was going to go down this path, and I hadn't even talked to him about it, so I was a little concerned that he was maybe going to get into this conversation early here this evening. But my general feeling about a lot of these things we talked about this fall is taking this up a level that we need a roadmap, or we need to be more strategic, right? We've talked about a lot of different pieces. We've talked about elementary schools and potentially some innovative ideas around preschools and academy schools that we could continue to discuss, even if our budget's in a better opportunity. We've talked about extracurricular additions, right? We've talked about things for athletics. We're going to deal with a fine arts assessment here shortly that we're asking for your support to move forward with. And then we've talked about some goals around the Center for Innovation and what we'd like to see there. And I really feel like for our community to also understand this, we need a roadmap of where we're going. And we have some goals we can connect to, right? We've talked last year some about 2030, and that includes things like depth and breadth to our curriculum, our preschool program, the opportunities for innovation and enhancing our student learning opportunities. And so I think we have some pieces that will talk to each other and that will connect with trying to maintain and grow enrollment. And so what I would really like to do is an opportunity to work with the team and to look at some of the numbers that Director Lingo was talking about before, what's still available to us in the FMP, what are potential impacts to our general fund, but almost have a plan that crosses a few different areas, right? Because it's not just an FMP plan, it's also a student programming plan, and try to articulate things that, hey, these would be potential projects we are more supportive of as a district, or that we'd like to prioritize it as a district. And then also connect that with a process for potential community feedback, right, on those, to say, okay, this is kind of where we're at. What do you think, community, about these projects we have left? So I guess the ask here this evening would be, if you're comfortable with that approach, or if that is kind of connecting for you on some level, making some sense, and then our team would work to really try to complete some of the data requests that we have out there with the demographer study, the capacity study we're going to ask you to support, and the fine arts study, get all of that information, and then bring back a well-articulated process of how we make all of this fit and make it make sense, right? Instead of having all these bits and pieces, which seems kind of like where we've been, the last few months on a few different topics. I see some heads nodding, so.
Yeah. With that, I guess we heard Superintendent Degner's ask, and I would just want to get a sense of the board, is that okay?
I think that's exactly what we need to do. I mean, we've talked about all these different things sort of in isolation from each other, and I think we need to take that step back, get the bigger picture, put together the plan, and then take action on it, right? So it becomes, all right, that's the thing we're doing, or things we're doing, and we got to stop just sort of talking around it in little pieces.
Yeah, I would agree. I would support, Matt's approach on this.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of this concept. We learned a lot, definitely. And what I'd like to see is that we take the information that we learned and improve upon it. I'm not opposed to any of this. I just feel like we're just not there yet. So yeah, I completely agree. I support what you're doing there, and yeah, I'm just not. I guess my standards are maybe just a little high. I just don't think we're there yet.
Sounds good.
There we go. All right. Was there anything else on that topic, Superintendent Degner? Okay. With that, we will move on to tonight's presentations. And the first presentation is the district's career and academic plan. And is that Superintendent Degner?
I'll fill some time while these folks come up to the front here. So maybe Chase had an opening prepared for this presentation too, but it somewhat fits with what we're just talking about. But our district career and academic plan is a presentation we need to deliver to you on a yearly basis. And so tonight we have our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Carmen, here, along with Lindsay Schluckelbeer, and they're going to talk to you some about our approach in this area, and also a few kudos that they've received for the good work in this area.
Right. Thank you so much for the time today to listen to this. Lindsay is going to do the presentation. I told her I was going to be her clicker and kind of click her through this, but I would love to give kudos to Lindsay and her team because they did receive a recognition from their plan. We always have to send it for approval. And Lindsay and her team in this plan was recognized for exemplary process, and they've been invited to also present to other districts within the state on this plan. So great work for the work just put into this with the team.
Nice. Congratulations.
Now we'll click for you. Thank you.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time this evening. And as Superintendent Degner mentioned, what we're talking about here connects so well to many of the discussion items that have happened already this evening. So I'm very excited. I'm going to try to stay to my notes because I had so many thoughts, so I was listening to everybody. So here is our overview of what we're going to cover. I will talk to you about what this district career and academic plan is, what the process entails, share a bit about some of the components that we have in place to help our students be future ready, and we have some student highlights, which I'm very excited about. So here you see Iowa's definition of college and career readiness, and one of the pieces that I was thinking about as you all were talking was this idea of, as Superintendent Degner mentioned, this pathway to purpose. And I love that phrase so much more than college and career readiness because we know not every student is that the four-year university track is the right track for them, or even community college, right? So this idea of there's many pathways that our students can take, and how do we help them build that self-awareness and understanding to know what possible pathways to explore, and that there's lots of different options. And we know in where we're at right now in our society that sticking to one career in your lifetime is it's not as common as it was, at least, or as it is at least for my age. And so it's really important to help build students' understanding of, again, here's what I'm interested in, here's what I value, here are different career opportunities for me that fall within these pieces, and that, you know, even those the careers that don't exist now, that those can be opportunities for them in the future. So this is just an overview of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are necessary and define post-secondary readiness and success for our students. As you can see, so much of our Portrait of a Graduate competencies align with this as well. Okay, so I don't know, it depends on how long you've been around, but forever we talked about ICAP. And then the last couple of years, we started talking about DCAP. So our DCAP, just to distinguish between the two, the DCAP is the District Career and Academic Plan. So the plan that we have in place to support our students, again, being post-secondary ready, and the plan that we have to submit to the state every September is 4 grades. We have to identify activities and learning for our students from grades 8 through 12. To Director Eyestone's point, though, we want to make sure that there are those touch points along the way, right? We don't want to wait to 8th grade to start talking to kids about what are your opportunities and what can you learn about yourself and how does that inform your post-secondary decision-making. So thankfully, we do have some of this learning that happens in our elementary school. So our school counselors have a career exploration unit usually in the spring, where they work with students on these things and they address some of those stereotypes and biases and try to help build just their understanding of what's out there, right? And if we can continue to enhance that even at the elementary level and pull in some of our partners like JA, then that would be, you know, even more robust and help building those moments throughout. So then the individual, and to Director Gwinagali's point too, when we submit this to the state, it is a very involved plan, and there's an involved assessment evaluation process. So there are members of a committee from the state who review every district's plan and use a rubric to do so. And we were honored with exemplary status this year. So that was very exciting and honors the hard work that we're doing in our district. And do we have room for improvement? Absolutely. Do we have things that we need to align and pull together to continue to move forward? Absolutely. But we're doing a lot of great things too, and that was recognized. And then the individual, the ICAP portion of it, the individual career and academic plan, is the plan that students develop to show what they're thinking about. What are they planning for their pathway to purpose? And that's that part. See, I wrote notes and I'm not looking at them. It's dangerous. Okay. So this outlines the 3 main goal areas of our DCAP and then our goals for the students in the ICAP. That first one is that students are going to develop and then develop in 8th grade and then every subsequent year reflect upon their 4-year plan. And one of the key pieces that we continue to enhance is we are working to ensure that all students are engaged in a high quality, meaningful registration process. And we do use Zello, our career information system, as a way to build student self-awareness and understanding of things that they're interested in and career opportunities that align with that. And we've really done a lot of work to build out our resources on our website related to pathways and courses that we have in district that fall under these different pathways, as well as opportunities through Kirkwood Regional Center and the academies and concurrent enrollment. And we've also aligned them with job shadow and internship experiences and clubs that we have that align with the different skills and areas that relate to those pathways. So what we're really working on this year is not just having kids click through without thinking about what courses they're registering for, and definitely when they're building that 4-year plan, not just, blindly clicking. But really making that process more meaningful and having, so actually this Thursday I'm working with secondary school counselors on building a plan for that registration process and what pre-teaching needs to happen, how can we get students engaging in before we're asking them to build their 4-year plan, how can we get students engaging in reviewing, looking at what we have on the website and the pathways alongside the information they've gained through their Zello assessments, and the career. We have career event opportunities at many of our grade levels, and I'll talk a bit about those in just a minute. But all of this information, getting students to really synthesize that information and think about what that means for them as they're, of course, 8th graders going into 9th grade, as they're thinking about their whole high school plan, and thinking about, okay, so I was a 9th grader and I thought I was on this pathway and I took these classes and now I'm noticing I'm not very interested in this, so I'm going to think about what else is out there, or this really does fit for me, so I'm going to continue on this path. So just getting students to be really reflective and think about that process. And these are some of the highlights, some things that we pay attention to when we're building our plan and the action steps that go along with those. So we have I've talked about a lot of these already. Just seeing if there's anything new. No. Okay. So the plan consists of 5 essential components, and I think so many of these, again, align with our Portrait of a Graduate competencies. What I try to do is, you'll see under each component that there is, it's a component, right? Self-understanding, career information, career exploration, post-secondary exploration, and career and post-secondary decision making. So for each of these components, we have to write out what our plan is at each grade level, so 8th through 12th, and what our action steps are, who's responsible, how are we getting students there. It's really important to have students reflecting on every activity we have them engage in, so that's a big part of it. Really wanted to highlight, though, that essential component number 3, career exploration, because we are really working hard to ensure universal opportunities for our students, not just opt-in opportunities. So in 9th grade, and some of our student representatives talked about this earlier, all 9th graders went to Career Inspire, so a hands-on career fair. And I'll just share one little anecdote. I have a 9th grader myself, and she texted me later that day and said, well, I know what I'm going to do with my career. She's figured it out. And so she just talked about she wants to be an ultrasound tech. So it was really like almost process of elimination at that point. She wasn't interested in the other things. This one caught her interest. It was something she had been thinking about prior, but just that opportunity to engage in some hands-on experiences and talk to people in the field helped solidify that for her at this moment in her 14-year-old life, right? And we know that might change, and that's okay too. But getting them excited about what they're learning and what their opportunities are is what it's all about. In 10th grade, they're getting ready to do career caravan, and that's at Kirkwood Community College. And they will they will select different clusters, pathways, areas to go to that day, and they will hear from industry partners about what the responsibilities are in that job. And that is happening December 17th. So if you're interested, feel free to stop on by Kirkwood Regional Center and you can see what's happening. Okay, this is what I'm very excited about. So we decided that what better way to talk about what we're doing around future readiness for our students than to hear from the students themselves. And you heard some great reports from our students already today, and we've got a few little videos and pictures to share with you as well. Okay, so this one is from one of our students, a couple of our students actually, who are working on the student-built house. This is our longest video, but I promise it's worth it. It's 3 minutes. If we got volume. See, this is why I'm not clicking. I cannot figure this thing out.
All right, I've got sound first.
Sorry, stand by.
Okay, we might need your help for this one. Oof.
Maybe there's a student interested in video presentations that could help out.
I was just gonna say, this is not part of my reverse inventory technology.
Well, you do have the link, so hopefully you should be able to go back and see the
Yeah.
videos. Volume over the video. Let's see here.
When it was large screen, there was a go. I saw a little microphone at one point. Go ahead and play. It's behind that. Don't hover over that for just a second.
Like double click on the video, maybe.
See it right there.
It's all the way to the top. Yep.
Huh.
Yes.
Darn.
So this is the interesting part to where you would just get to see, but you can go back to the link. And so the link is on the board docs, so you should be able to see the videos. The exciting part of this too is that in addition to this is the pictures that we got from the Career Inspire event that students did go to. So as we had our representative from Liberty High share today of how exciting that was for her to see, and then also was Lindsay's child. And then you have another video, which is a student talking about the AVID program through that HEX program also. And this is Lindsay's own child.
Also my child.
Talking about
different
this.
child.
So when you get a chance, you can look at those. The most exciting part of this though, just to wrap up the presentation for you, is that in addition to our program of studies that we've gotten approved today and that we're gonna go ahead and keep doing on our website, Kristen's team have done an amazing job now in a way for us to really engage our students a little bit more into their pathways and learn more about those courses. So like Lindsay shared, instead of our students just clicking, they get to learn more what's happening. So when you have a chance, we hope they can also go in and see. And this one I'm gonna play, even if you don't have the sound. I still want you to see some of the images here. But this is one of our students today from West talk about the Pump It Up. And that the coffee shop that they have at West High. And so Diane Fickle is the one who's been leading that work with our students. It's our entrepreneurship course. And we have the students talking about the class and what they're getting out of that experience from that class. And then also just talk about how it leads them to think through their pathways. And so the class is designed around this. So each of these, we're trying to build videos, videos that align to our courses that we offer in our program of studies. And these will be added to all of the program of studies courses essentially when they're all built. And students will be able to go in and see before the registration events some of the courses, what the courses offer. All the courses have teachers and students talking about it. And then it also talks about how it ties to their pathway and how they were not thinking about something before, but now they are, or how it's also helping them connect to other things. So this one course here, students talk about how it helps them connect to math. The next course we have is geometry and construction. So you also have students talking about that process and how they have those two combined of construction and learning math in just hands-on experiences in different ways. And the third one is a culinary arts class. And students talk about their culinary arts experience and how they weren't thinking of being chefs, but now they want to be, or just go into the restaurant business. And so those are just different exciting options that students will have this year in addition to seeing the courses and seeing the pathway. They get to also hear about it too and learn more. Right. And that is it.
Great.
Any questions you have for us?
Directors, feel free.
Go ahead. Can you talk about what, I'm sure you've considered this, about what kind of counselor support we have to help students through this, these decision-making issues here?
Are you asking about the support for counselors to support the students, or the support for students from counselors?
The counselor's ability. If we have enough counselor support for students, to take full advantage of these opportunities in decision-making here.
I think
Does
that's
that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I think that depends on who you ask. We are really working to ensure that our students, that this is a priority for our school counselors and our school comprehensive school counseling program. And so that's a lot of work that I'm doing in my role as curriculum coordinator, is working with school counselors and building their capacity to have these meaningful conversations and do that really academic advising and future planning with our students. And building, I mean, a lot of these tools that we have available helps build their knowledge and understanding as well. Really digging into the Zello data so that they can help guide students, right? Have that information from students and help guide them. So it's a work in progress. And I believe, we are all on the same page that this is a priority. And so we'll continue to give that time to counselors and maybe take away some of the other responsibilities that don't align with the priority.
Lindsay's being very kind in trying to say, and I think get at the struggle Charlie's articulating a little bit, right? And I do think we're going to have to look a little bit about even if we need some career counselor focused positions. Want to give a big shout out to Leo Ramirez from City High running for IJAG office. Leo called me with this idea earlier this year. And I think Leo's actually pretty much on track with, I think, some of the challenge ahead of us. You heard Director Lingo earlier mention Iowa School performance profiles and some of the work-based requirements and things that we're going to need to align. And I do think, our counselors need some further assistance with this. They are doing a great job in trying to realign some of their work and figure out where we want counselors spending their time. But our guidance counselors spend a lot of time in a lot of different areas, very similar to our administrators. And so I do think that's an area we're going to have to take a critical look at. Charlie, is there a better way and a better staffing model we can also try to align to help kids find success in these areas?
First, I want to thank both of you for the presentation today. It's already been mentioned earlier, the discussion of post-secondary readiness is no longer just post-secondary, and that's something we've heard from community members, that's local, state, national. And so as we have to, we don't have to, as I at least, I have to refocus my own perspective on what it is after secondary school, because that is what post-secondary is. How can we, or at least myself at the board table, help us through any sort of figuring out how to increase things like work-based learning and some of these things around industry credentials? And it sounds like Superintendent Degner said that they're in the early phases of this, but any thoughts or opinions are appreciated.
I think I would have to say first what Superintendent Degner said earlier, just getting that team together to start having those deeper conversations is the first step, and that's essential. Lucas and I have been working with Lindsay and with the counselors too, just in the background to do a lot of the work of how we can be more aligned of offering opportunities for our students through work-based learning experiences. We're working with our CTE coordinator for that piece too, and just making sure we're more intentional about offering more concurrent enrollment options for students too. Exposing our students to more of the academies that currently exist with Kirkwood, and then building a deeper partnership is what we're also doing with our Kirkwood team. So there's been a lot of work that is currently happening right now just to be more aligned, and so students have more of those opportunities to really engaged. Working with our coordinators to think about more project-based learning students can have in the classroom in our current courses that we offer, and how we can invite more of our businesses into our spaces so students have more opportunities to get some of those work-based learnings hands-on experiences. So there's parts of those things that are already in play, and our hope is just to continue growing with that. But I figure the biggest help, I guess, with that conversation will be what Superintendent Degner proposed today of engaging the team into that conversation.
I think there's also going to be somewhat of some assistance we'll need in just a generalized culture shift, if you will, in some areas between what's valued versus what's scored. And I think, want to be careful in how I say this, but oftentimes what's valued in our system right now is the more traditional honors AP track, right? And even some of the, and I don't want to get lost in this conversation by any means tonight, we're going to come back to you with this, but what's being valued in some of the school performance profile work is not always recognizing that, right? It's recognizing some of these other pieces that we're talking about this evening with the work-based learning. And so, and I think that's always a challenge for us in a university community, right? Is, what else is there besides college? And so shifting some of that narrative, I think will be important work for us as a district team to think about how do we do that? How do we open more doors for kids?
Thank you both.
Any more questions?
No, I just have a comment. I did watch the videos before tonight, and it was actually pretty heartwarming to see the excitement on the students' faces as they talked and shared their experiences. And I was had like a flashback to my high school experience as we walked through the student build house, and I'm like, man, you do not want me in there. But it was very nice to see. So thank you for putting those together, and thank you for the presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I wanted, one thing I was, that I forgot to say is this whole idea, and I think Director Williams brought it up, and President Maloney, you just made me think of it too. This idea of when we can get students engaged in these hands-on experiences, they can see the relevancy, right? They start to feel like this makes sense, and I am engaged in this, and I'm engaged in my learning, and, ideally it would improve attendance and academic outcomes and all of the things that we want for our students. So thank you for watching those videos. Sorry it didn't work with the volume, but I encourage you all to take a look. It's worth your time, I promise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have the certified annual report from CFO Kurth. As he walks to the podium, Superintendent Degner.
Yeah, so I've asked Adam to be brief on these items tonight, as we've talked about the budget a couple meetings here in a row with some information. Of course, there's a number of attachments in there. Also going to ask him immediately here after these two presentations. There's the SBRC corrective action plan approval in your agenda. And so he might just kind of talk from all three of those perspectives while he's up here. And then if you guys have specific questions, I know he'd be happy to answer those.
That sounds perfect.
Yep, and as Matt shared, I will be brief here. I'm not going to go through all of the attachments. I welcome you to, and I'm more than happy to address any questions that you have. The first is for the certified annual report. This is something we're required to submit each September. This was submitted in a timely fashion by September 16th, which was the state deadline. So this has been submitted to the state. Basically what the attachments are, just screenshots from all of those reports. So those go to the state. Then the state goes through those. We have not heard of any follow-up or changes from their end. So a clean process this year. And then I do want to jump to the quarterly financial report. So this format will look familiar. It's the same format that we've been using for the last several quarters. Again, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. And ultimately, during the first quarter of the year, it's tough to really get a lot out of these. There are some timing issues in terms of when expenditures occur. Our expenditures and our revenues do not track, 25% of the way through the year. We are not 25% of the way through where we would expect to end up. The one slide that I do want to mention real quick. You can see prior year versus current year, both on the revenue slide and on expenditures. Those track pretty closely, so they're about what we would expect them to be. And then I want to draw your attention to the final slide here, which is from our financial projection model. When I gave my last budget update, I said that I had a meeting a couple of days later in Des Moines where I would expect to get some more information about SSA expectations, that sort of thing. This model does reflect that. The expectations we are using are a 2% SSA rate over the coming 5 years. I will admit to having a little bit of trepidation about that. That's the guidance that we've gotten from the state, and that's the guidance that individuals at Iowa School of Finance and the UEN are getting from legislators in the governor's office to the extent that that's available. However, I will say that I'll be monitoring very closely the December revenue estimating conference and what comes out of that, because if those revenues are estimated to be even lower than they already were projected, that makes me nervous about that 2% rate. So these are built with that 2% in mind. It also includes the new model for the current year, which includes increase to teacher salary supplement, a couple other things. The line I want to draw your attention to is here at the bottom. So if I'm looking at estimated 2025, that is what, like the 8th column over. And if I go down to row 51 here, we finished last year at 3.304,214, so $3.3 million. That's fantastic. That's obviously better than we expected to do, and I went through some of the reasons for that at the last meeting. For the current year, we expect to end the year at this point at 8.05 million. Obviously, I will continue to update you on those numbers because I do not expect it'll be exactly that by the time we get to the end of the year here. But based upon the information we have, we expect to be on a good trajectory. Really, this is the trajectory that we had mapped out as we went through our budget reduction process, kind of amplified by getting a little bit of a head start on it through some of those increased revenues. As you look through the years down the road, again, based on that SSA rate of 2% and a flat enrollment, we would be looking at getting to that upper range right around what the board has designated as our goal for unspent balance of 5 to 10%. I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions about that report?
With the $8 million, would it define where we're at? It'd be 8 divided by 208, correct? So we're just under 5%?
Yeah, it would actually be the 8 divided by the row right above it, which is the expenditures row. So it would be the percentage that represents of expenditures. So you're in the ballpark, though. It's the same basic idea. Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
I would just say that's really hard work and a really big deal. That's not easy, and you guys were all part of the not easy part, right? And so, I just think that's oftentimes one that we gloss over and the number looks good and then we move on. But I do think it, deserves a minute just to say, climbing out of that hole we were in and getting to that part, has taken a lot of great collaboration from the board to the admin team to the community and our staff. And I know our staff has went without some things, because of that too. So I think just take a minute to see the positive that what we're doing is working is very important.
Yeah. So with that, no questions. And the next item is an action item, the SBRC Corrective Action Plan approval. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce this. And I mentioned that this would be something that was coming at the last budget overview. While I just shared that we will finish the year $3.3 million positive with unspent balance, we do have to appear before the SBRC this year for an initial negative unspent balance. The reason for that is that the SBRC requires an appearance if you are negative prior to their approval of English language excess costs, which you approved our request for a month or month and a half ago. That goes to the SBRC. So about 10 minutes after Matt and I present, they will approve that, and then we will be 3.3 million positive. However, prior to that, we will be about $107,000 negative. And so with that go all the trappings of an appearance before the SBRC. So the attachments that you see here are all of those attachments that we are required to file. Feel free to read through those, including the cover letter, which is kind of an overview. Really what it spells out is what have we done over the past year to get to the point we are, which is better than what we were expected to be last time we appeared before the SBRC. And then how do we plan to continue that work going forward and showing a substantially positive unspent balance in future years. Good news is we're barely initially negative this year. So again, barring any surprises, we would expect to be substantially positive initially next year. This would be our last appearance before the SBRC. But again, happy to address any questions with that.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for answering the SSA assumptions. That I saw that and I wondered, Didn't he just tell us? Anyway, but again, the SBRC appearance, this is just one more example for why it's so important to have that unspent balance of between 5 and 10%, obviously. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, or discussion for that action item?
So Adam, are you going to have to do any more midnight sessions here for the next?
Here's hoping not, for a while at least.
All right. With that, is there a motion?
Move approval of the SBRC Corrective Action Plan.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is the approval of the resolution for the Mid-America Energy Easement that we had a public hearing on. Are there any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move approval of the easement for Mid-American Energy.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next action item is for the facility planning proposal. Are there any questions, comments, items of discussion?
I just want to clarify, it's for the $150,000 portion of the agreement that's mentioned in the recommended action there. We're not interested in, at this time, that other portion of the services that are stated in the quote.
Hearing no questions from directors, is there a motion?
I move approval of the Iowa City Professional Service Agreement.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is the high school performing arts assessment proposal. Are there any items of discussion, comments, or questions?
I just want to thank Superintendent Degner for going down this path and looking into the arts. Truth be told, I was on that adventure with Director Eastham when we visited City High, and he got in a little trouble for it. He's showing me his ways to be a little bit of rabble-rousing, so I'll learn in time. But on that trip, when we were walking by the band room, I heard a student talking to the band director and being like, yeah, I transferred from this high school to go to City High for its band program. So, you know, I just want to highlight the importance in a lot of parents, and especially at the secondary level, the students themselves, when they have their own agency. The arts is within our community for bringing students back into our, not even necessarily back into, just into our secondary buildings.
Yeah, thank you, Director Lingo, and I appreciate your assistance in getting me around the building from time to time.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to chalk this up to the good trouble part of my life. So I really appreciate, again, Matt and the staff willingness to follow up from the community input we heard about the City High performing arts support for students there now and students coming in the future. And I think Director Lingo is right. Students are coming there for the performing arts opportunities that exist and will be enhanced by these building improvements. So I really appreciate everyone's work on this.
Any additional comments or questions or discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of OPN High School Performing Arts Assessment.
Seconded.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the 300 Series Policy for Administration. Are there any comments, discussion, or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the Policy 203, Board of Directors Conflict of Interest. Are there any discussion, comments, or questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
That concludes tonight's action items. And next up is Director Liaison Report. Are there any items that directors would like to highlight? Okay, hearing none, that takes us to agenda setting. We have an education meeting scheduled for November 19th at 4:30, and it will be held at Shimmick. We'll discuss the PLC's professional learning communities. We'll start, did I say at 4:30? I'm sorry, I can't remember. Yes. Okay. And then that takes us to our December meetings. We will have an operation meeting that will start at 5 o'clock in the back of the boardroom. And what's the discussion item?
I think I'll probably talk to you guys about if you want to do the cell phone piece in work session or at the regular meeting. So we may reserve that to flip to a work session. The other note I'll make with the release of the school performance profile data, we're going to switch our ed committee topic next week to that instead of the PLCs, and then we'll hold PLCs until December. So we may also then conversely change the location from Shimmick. So we'll get some communication out to you very quickly about that meeting for next week. But otherwise, during the regular meeting, I know we either need to do cell phones during work session or regular meeting, and we had talked to you about the APR as well. So,
okay, great. And then that will take us to our regular board meeting scheduled for the 10th. Several items on the agenda, and I don't know if there's items that directors would like to see added or placed in the parking lot.
I have a parking lot item, but just to confirm, so we are going to have ed committee in December and then just not the second board meeting in December.
correct. We'll just have one regular meeting, but we still will hold ed committee.
All right. Parking lot item, I know the ELP curriculum was up for revamping and they did some work on the test and with the goal of trying to give more equitable access to more of our students. I think the new test was implemented in the spring and then with maybe the fifth graders this fall, and obviously not maybe for the December meeting, but parking lot, if we could get an update on how that new, the changes to the curriculum and how the new testing and how that's all working out and what data we're seeing.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Depending on how sorry, it's getting late. Depending on how the direction of the cell phone, I would really like to have that discussed more so at the board table, because that's what a lot of people tune into, and it is a pretty large agenda item, as we talked earlier, for potential culture changes within the district. So that's like it being up here.
Yep, we can do that. I mean, if that's, supportive there. I do think, based on that timing and what we talked about in the work session, we're probably going to be looking for potentially even some action on what's put in front of you that night. I think it probably makes sense to do it there, and then we could revert back to operations and see if we have a relevant topic there too.
And just for a parking lot item, I would love to see an opportunity for us to hear an update from the care assessment team. I did meet with Director Callahan tonight, and so there are some exciting things happening that I would love to have the rest of the board hear about, as well as the public.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thanks.
Are there any other items? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.